Welcome back for another episode of the Big O Podcast. Today, I am joined by a Canadian football icon, 4-time Grey Cup winner, 3-time Grey Cup MVP, and arguably the GOAT of Canadian football, Damon Allen, aka USDA. Damon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. I guess you got USDA from my brother Michael.
Well, listen, I try to do a little bit of research, and when USDA comes out,
I'm about to say I heard that before, man, from my brother. He says that, but he says that a lot on Facebook. But I'm actually doing good.
Excellent.
Doing good. We're going through this COVID period, and always constantly trying to adjust and trying to abide by the bylaws or and how we're supposed to operate. But at the same time, you're thankful that you're healthy and you're trying to maneuver yourself in this life and adjust and adapt. But the main thing is that we're still here.
100%. And we'll talk a little bit about COVID as we go through, but I will have to say, COVID has not stopped you. You recently played, I think it was 18 holes at a par 3 just the other day. You put it on Instagram Live. 2 questions to start off with. What did you shoot? And how many more rounds are you trying to play with the potential shutdown coming soon to golf courses?
That day I went live. I was even. I had 2 birdies and 2 bogeys. And it was just an executive par 3, and so I decided that I didn't want to hit balls on the mat, so I figure out do my lessons and the extra shots and all these different things on the grass, and so you play much better right there. I think the mat sometimes give you a false confidence that like all the balls that you're hit are going straight, but sometimes you're digging deep into the mat, and so that's when I went live. I decided that's how I'm going to, slowly get involved in golf and work on a lot on my par 3s, a lot of iron work. And, even till that day, since I didn't hit my driver until I played 18 holes last Sunday.
Wow. So, I mean, you're turning into quite the golfer. And, where we are right now in Ontario, it looks like golf courses might actually end up getting shut down in the coming days because, the numbers are going through the roof. What are you going to use then? If you can't get onto the golf course, how are you going to get your golf fix in?
Well, I think one of the things, that I have, tried to do on a daily basis is exercise. Just staying in the house and no exercise, you can easily put on weight and you can do a lot of eating. And so you definitely have to maintain, and there's a balance there. But if it's shut down, I'm going to still train. I'm going to still work on my conditioning. And then one of the things you can do is, a lot of core work, a lot of plyos. I mean, so you don't necessarily have to go to the gym, but as long as I stay mobile and elastic, range of motion and all those things, I think I should be all right at 57.
So if we're not going live on Instagram for your 18 holes, we're going to get like a live Instagram workout video from Damon's personal gym. Is that what we're going to get?
Well, I think that it's I started going live again is due to the fact because for a long time I haven't been live, and it just gives me an opportunity to connect with people that guys that follow me and people that follow you. And so just wanted to check in and see how they're doing in the midst of this COVID and try to encourage them to get out and work on your conditioning and do all those things, because I mean I can see people starting to get a little crazy in a sense, standing in the house. 1 year is okay, but when it starts to go, past a year and into, can't foresee the future. I mean, 2 years in the home, and is, without, the the natural vitamin D, you're seeing the sunshine and light and walking and breathing. It just doesn't make sense, even in the midst of this COVID.
And it seems like Canada's sort of in this weird flux of being late to the party. Because the United States, I mean, they had small crowds for the World Series, they had limited audiences for the NFL season. The NHL has now opened it up, and now we're starting to see more and more fans be allowed into these stadiums and arenas for pretty much every sport, including when the Blue Jays had their opening weekend in Texas. They had a full, like, 50,000 fans in the crowd, maskless mandate in Texas, so they don't have to wear masks anymore. What was it from your days, going back to when you were playing in the CFL? What did the fans mean to you? And what do you think the difference would have been if you had to play either in front of a limited crowd compared to a packed stadium?
Well, I think what the one thing you have to understand as well, when you play on these football teams, you kind of have these kind of practices. It may not be real games, but we're doing real scrimmages and things like that. And we're not having the audience during those times. And so, even though we may not be used to not playing without the fans, but it's something that we do actually every day when we practice and competing against the defense and those things. But now, the scoreboard's on and it's keeping score. I mean, that's really the only difference.
Right.
And so when the season starts and you're playing a limited amount of games, the season is live, and you go right back to, you want to win a championship, and whether it's no fans in the stadium or the stadium's packed. I mean, there's times that, I've been in stacked stadiums and been in Grey Cup games where, 60 million, not 60 million, but 60,000 people at the game, 15 million people watching, and at the game, you don't even hear them. I mean, because you're so focused and so in tune with the game. And so it's there because, you score a touchdown and people are cheering. But when you're focused for 60 minutes, and sometimes you don't even realize the fans are out there.
Right. I mean, it's an interesting perspective you brought up, because I've spoken to some sports media types. I've spoken to some former athletes, including a current MLS player. And you're the only one who brought up the fact that you practice in front of no fans. And so you're kind of used to a little bit of that environment, which is a very interesting perspective, because most people said, depending on the sport, you really feed off of the crowd, whether it's the chants, whether it's, completing that 18-yard quick out with a minute 20 left to go and trying to get into field goal range and getting up to the line and either quieting down the crowd. Because, listen, we're trying to win this game here. We appreciate you, but let us just do what we're supposed to do. So it's an interesting and fresh perspective of, we do this on a daily, weekly basis. So there's a little bit of experience that you have with it. But like you said, when the scoreboard goes on, things tend to change just a little bit when people are keeping track of stats.
It's the scoreboard that makes the biggest difference. When the scoreboard is on and the scoreboard keeps score, and, regardless if there's fans or no fans, if you need to complete, that 4th and 6, to keep the drive going, it doesn't matter who's in the stands.
Right.
But clearly, people in the stands, they bring energy, they create energy. And so they just make it that much better to play in front of.
Now, I do apologize. The introduction didn't quite do Damon Allen justice. But to be fair, if I was going to list all of the accolades that you have accomplished during your professional football career, I would have used up all of the time that we have together today. So before we get to the accolades, I want to talk to you about where it all began for you in San Diego, with spray painted foul poles, bases, and a home plate. Take us back to Allen Field and what that meant for you growing up in San Diego.
I think, when you have two older brothers and you're 3 years and 4 years apart, clearly, I've watched my brother Harold and Marcus, grow up. they may have started football and baseball a little bit later, but because I'm younger, that means I started a little bit earlier.
Right.
And so when they're about 10, 11 years old or around that age, I mean, I'm 7 years old, 6, and I'm playing Mighty Mite.
Yeah.
I'm playing uh, midget baseball, and they're going right to the majors because they're at that age limit from 10 years old, 11 years old. And so the fact that I got a chance to play at the different levels and see it all, I think prepared me in a sense. And sometimes when you watch them and you watch your brothers, and that your father played a little bit of baseball too, and so I always tell people that we're actually a baseball family. It just so happened two of us played football as well, and many of us played football, but two of us played football professionally. So those are pretty much the two sports that we played growing up, baseball and football, and going right from one sport to the next. We did play basketball in high school, so I was a 3-sport athlete coming out. But then when university came about, I was still playing baseball and football all the way because at 7 years old, the one thing I did know is I wanted to pursue those two sports.
Right.
And I wanted to give myself options. And, thankful enough that I was able to play at baseball and football at all the different levels, win at all the different levels, and eventually gave myself an opportunity to pick one sport or the other, depending on what I wanted to do that day.
It's interesting because I knew that you were a 2-sport athlete, but I didn't know just how good of a 2-sport athlete you were until I started doing a little bit of research. I don't know if there's anybody who has won a College World Series and a Grey Cup, or even a College World Series and an NFL championship. Like the accolades, and I joked about this earlier, but I'm dead serious. Like the accolades that you have racked up throughout your career is nothing short of incredible. You've had success from the youngest of ages, since you started playing football at a young age and took over. You were winning, and then when you go to high school, when you go to college, when you go to the CFL, maybe you could say the only stop that gave you a little bit of a challenge was the USFL. And we'll get to that and who you were sort of behind there. But that was 2 years. And
well, it wasn't a USFL because I never played in the USFL.
You were okay. So this is where I had you playing or on the Los Angeles Express. Is that incorrect?
Yes, they had my rights.
Okay, they had your rights. There we go. Okay, so it's like half a point for being correct there.
Yeah, that's okay. You're right. So I can explain that a little bit because they had my rights, and that was during the time when Steve Young was their quarterback that year, and I guess he signed an annuity, and then I guess he was supposed to at that time, go to the National Football League, and so I was just coming out at that time before the LA Express, ran out of money. So I guess they gave all their money to Steve Young at that time. But it would have been interesting because I might have went that route and played in the USFL before I came to the CFL if the USFL, didn't run out of money.
Right.
Because, like I said, I was the property of the LA Express.
And I wonder, if they decide to not go with Steve Young, and we go with the young Damon Allen from Cal State Fullerton, maybe you would have been the savior for the USFL. Maybe you would have put enough butts in the seats to say, hey, this is going to be our franchise guy. You know what? They went with Steve Young, and look what happened. They had to fold up. And being from Canada, we're extremely grateful for the fact that you decided to take your talents north of the border, because when we start to talk about what you did in the CFL, Grey Cups, 4 Grey Cups, 3 different teams, the awards, the fact that you became this amazing icon in Toronto, which I would say is probably one of the most important franchises for the CFL when it is being successful. And it just means a lot because you ended up inspiring a lot of athletes to take up the sport of football, because when you came in, there also wasn't a ton of black quarterbacks. And so when you come into the NFL, or when you come to the CFL, you are now allowing people to identify with something that they didn't necessarily believe that they could do, but now they see someone having your success on the grandest of stages in the CFL and just playing professional football. Has anybody ever talked to you about the impact that you've had because of that, because of how you carried yourself and the success that you had being in the CFL?
I think I, in a sense, I had really good mentors too, and I had a great amount of respect for history. And so, coming in, understanding that, that position, the National Football League wanted to switch my positions, but I already knew about, all the other quarterbacks that went through the challenging. I'm not saying that they didn't succeed, but there was always challenges for African American quarterbacks, playing in the National Football League. And so I understood that portion of it because, I knew about Joe Gilliam. He was the first quarterback I ever seen because he was like built like me. He was, skinny, long legs, skinny, long arm, whippy arm, and he wore high white socks. So that was the first quarterback I identified and seen. Like I want to be like Joe Gilliam. And then after that, you knew about James Harris, but I was always trying to find guys that were very similar to my build because, me coming out, I didn't play football my 10th grade year at all. And because I dealt with self-doubt, not right. Self-doubt because I think I couldn't play, but self-doubt for me, the struggles I had and the challenges I had was I always thought I was too small to play.
Right.
And that very thought process stopped me from doing the very thing I was passionate about. And so that's why it's so important. It's always important for, coaches, people to encourage in those things, because it took a coach to encourage me to get back into the game and play my JV team 10th grade year. For the last 5 games, he wanted me to play. He's like, hey, we lost our quarterback. We've seen you play in Pop Warner. Hey, play these last 5 games. And so he talked me into it. And I played the last 5 games. I threw like 20 touchdowns in 5 games. And then the next year, I was the starting quarterback of our varsity team. We go to CIF and win, go undefeated. Then the next year, we win CIF again. And I lose 2 games in 2 seasons. And then before I know it, I'm getting a scholarship to go to the university, play quarterback. And so I think it's those times when you look at that I always choose the words of encouragement to young men or anybody in sport, and just to believe in themselves and work hard and don't worry about your size.
And this is why I say you were an inspiration to the next generation of athlete, because again, we so often try to envision ourselves in whatever realm we want to do. So whether it's sports media, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a singer, actor, actress, whatever, we try to say, okay, who do I sort of look like that's already doing it? And then if I see myself as that, okay, I can do this now too, which is why, women in sports has taken such a huge skyrocket over the last, 10 years. The fact that the United States now has a female vice president who's also black, who's also South Asian. So, the inspiration continues to grow. And it's amazing because you're talking about you doing that yourself, seeing guys who've played on the biggest stage. Who do I look like? Not just because of maybe my talent, but my size. And you said, your size was one of the biggest holdbacks, but now you're starting to see, you see a guy like Doug Flutie, for instance. Tiny guy. Like he's not a big guy whatsoever. And I read an article about your Cal State Fullerton coach in the recruitment process of sending guys to come and see you playing during your high school days. And they said, if he's anywhere close to 5'10", let's give him a scholarship. If he's taller than 5'10", let's give him 9 scholarships. And so again, you're talking about the thing that you doubted yourself the most, and yet your skill was just at such a level that they were like, listen, if he's a little bit shorter, that's totally fine. We'll make it work because we want him that bad. And you go on to kill it at Cal State Fullerton. You lead the Titans to 2 Pacific Coast Athletic Association titles. You broke a 26-year NCAA record, launching more than 300 passes with only 3 interceptions, while getting that nickname of USDA that I absolutely love. United States of Damon Allen, but for anyone else, USDA is grade of beef, prime rib beef, triple, quadruple A, and you're talking about being the skinny kid. What does that mean? That your biggest doubt is just size, but you continue everywhere you go in every sport you play. Just continue to get better and overcome the obstacles in front of you.
I'd like to say the fact that I understand history and know the history of Black quarterbacks, and I can have a greater appreciation because, I can look at Jackie Robinson's career, and he couldn't dress with his team. I mean, he had to be the last person that come to the stadium because of the death threats and all the things that he had to deal with. He comes to the plate and he's pretty much has 2 strikes on him already. Yeah. And all the things that are going through. And you look at how he handled the situation. He handled it with such class and grace. But you clearly you had to be tough mentally. And so I think when you understand the story of Warren Moon, which is one of the other quarterbacks I followed throughout my career. And you read about his story. I mean, you come to know that your stories are very similar. Yep. It's a position that you're always doubted, that you can lead an organization and franchise. But through my experience, I can say, well, I won a championship at every level of football that you can think of, from Pop Warner to the different divisions of Pop Warner and high school, university, and pros. And so I think I brought on that mentality of toughness and skill and intelligence and determination to win championships, because, we all are brought up as quarterbacks saying that championships really define, how good you were and those things. And so, if I want to be talked about, then, championships also has to be a part of it. And so, and then watching my older brother, Marcus, and what he dealt with mentally, how tough he is and skillful he is, and those things, you realize that you have good bloodlines too. Right. And that brings confidence. And so, like, even today, like, you still watch, the quarterbacks, the games. You're still in that, when you watch a game, I look at the game totally different than probably fans do it. But at the end of the day, I still got that competitive fire. For sure. And anything that I do, and that will never leave me. But I can really, truly appreciate it. And, the hard work and dedication it takes to not only play with skill, but play with toughness mentally. Because, like I said, you're going to be questioned. I mean, even though when I was winning championship, I was still being questioned as a leader. Of course. which is always crazy to me, right? But I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You're questioning if I can lead a team to a championship. I've already done it 3 times or 4 times already. Yeah. Basically 4 different teams, because everybody said, well, Edmonton is the same team. I said, yeah, by uniform, but understanding my career, I came there the first 4 years and I left and came back. So I came back to a different team and took them again. So that's why I always say, 4 teams, 4 Grey Cups and 4 different teams. You're right. I mean, same franchise, but completely different set of offensive weapons and coaches and schemes and all of those things. So, I mean, you brought up 2 things that I definitely want to come back to. Number one being, your success at every level, and understanding that when you talk about greatness, oftentimes it is defined by championships. So we're gonna come back to a GOAT conversation very shortly. Yeah. But you brought him up, and I was going to try not to bring him up because I told you before the podcast, I have a personal bias towards your brother because of
his alma mater. My parents went to USC. Obviously, your brother won the Heisman there, ended up winning an NFL championship with the LA Raiders. And I have to ask you, until 2024, you and Marcus are currently the only brothers to be elected to 2 Pro Football Hall of Fames. This meant the world to your father, Harold Sr., but in doing some research on your career, I find it extremely hard to find a bigger fan of yours than Gwendolyn, your mother. What was it?
Yeah.
What was it like to have 2 supportive parents? And just between you and me, no one else is listening right now. Who was their favorite, you or Marcus?
Yeah, I think Marcus was the favorite. He's the older brother, and his story is so unique. And it really shows like his ability to adapt. I mean, because if people that actually really know his story, you would think what he was able to do is just phenomenal for someone who left high school that was a quarterback and a free safety, and he goes to USC as a free safety. So he didn't go as a running back or those things. He switched his position in university because he wanted to win the Heisman.
Wow.
And so my question is, who does that?
Yeah,
who
nobody
does that in college football? We're not talking about like Emmitt Smith or Eric Dickerson and all these other running backs that are great, that have been playing running back their whole life since they were kids.
Right.
We're talking about someone who goes to college, says he wants to win the Heisman, he changes his position, and then he accomplished all the things he has accomplished and played quarterback. And so at the end of the day, man, like you said, we're athletes that have the ability to adapt and play the position the way we feel it should be played.
And what was it like having the support of your parents? Like having, your dad from the time that you guys can walk, you guys were, playing baseball or running with a football or just being active and out there. What was it like to have both of them have such a strong influence, either through sports or through support?
Well, I mean, it's very thankful, like, especially in these days of COVID. I mean, my parents have been married over 65 years or more. And man, they're still alive. And during the time when we were growing up, whatever we were involved in, my father was a coach, and my mother was the team mother. So it's just like when you think of the Canadian families here, and when they spend time in the summer, they go to Muskoka and they all got their house and they all together. That our summer times were at the baseball diamond and the football field.
Right. Working.
And putting in work. All my brothers playing in different divisions and teams. So when we're at the baseball diamond, we're, two of my brothers played for the Braves. I played for the Red Devils. My brother Michael played for somebody else. And then, my sister's running around. And then I have a, 3-year-old brother at that he wasn't then, but he was 3 years old.
Yeah.
When my brother was running for the Heisman and I was in university. I had a 3-year-old brother. And his name is Darius. But, I just think in that sense, the family togetherness, we're close. And we know the importance of, like, having that strong foundation. So, we always say, I didn't have to look any further than our dining room table for our heroes. They were at the table. And so it made it easier.
I mean,
to have both for your parents, right? And to guide, to be tough, challenge, and all those things. And definitely, my father, he was a disciplinarian, but my mom was a very loving, but, she was firm as well.
Listen, based on how everything worked out, it seems as though, if you could bottle that up and put it into like a secret sauce or a recipe, that's what you want your parents to be like. I have 2 kids, a third one coming in a couple of weeks, and I'm still, I'm trying to find that same balance that, your parents had of, the strict the strict, but also firm, but also loving, because you can't do one without the balance of the others and knowing when to turn it on. And, you know, you yourself are a father. How have you taken some of the lessons that your parents gave you and turned that into how you're helping raise your children?
Well, I mean, you understand that communication is important, but at the same time, you basically are. I am my father in a sense.
Right.
I am my brother Marcus and Harold, and like saying, even though we got spankings,
Right.
but we never felt that we weren't loved. So
Right.
it's the combination to be able to discipline and then know that But when we're being disciplined, it's because we done something. Because we done
Never
something that we
never
weren't
unwarranted.
supposed to do. Like I was a kid and I was throwing rocks, and we were throwing rocks. I hit my sister in the forehead. And I think I went to sleep like it. Like no, it wasn't. It was ugly, man. I went to sleep like at noontime, like early, like 11 o'clock or 12, because my mom says, "Wait till your dad get home." Right? I was like, "Oh man, I'm going to bed," hoping he forgets that I'm asleep, and he's not going to. But those are just the way we were raised, and then, like I said, we had great grandparents. Like I said, it was never a day that we didn't feel like we were loved, and so we feel like we can accomplish anything as well,
Right.
because of the supporting cast that we had, right? So my first team, like my father always said, your first team is your family, and so that's how I learned to be a team player. That's how I learned about team concept, is through your first mini team in your family.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine some of the trouble that you would find yourselves into with, these
we were in trouble.
Testosterone flowing in the summertime, and it's just, the passion between all of you. Just, I'm sure it was incredible.
Yeah, we're quite competitive, and we played in the street. Back then, you can play outdoors in the street all day long. I mean, we're out there all day, and so only time we came in the house really is to dinner time. But other than that, man, we was outside, man, competing. Trying to hold down our street, 1003 Winston Drive. That's and it's funny too. Is back then we used to have street teams, right? We're from 1003 Winston Drive. We're from Winston Drive, playing against another team that they might be Fletcher Street, right?
Right.
We're playing tackle football. So you imagine the talent level that was on our street, because we had the Jackson brothers, Monty and Jackson, that played at San Diego State and played for the Giants and the Jets. Right, they lived on our street as well.
That's not fair.
It was competitive, right? And so we knew about the Jacksons. David Grayson lived on our street as well. That played for the Raiders for a number. David Grayson Sr., we played with his son, David Jr. So it was, like I said, we were competitive.
It is time to talk about below the waist grooming. It has never been easier to take care of your package, and thanks to Manscaped, they have all of the necessary tools for your family jewels. Let's be honest, the last 18 months have been tough on everyone, but as we begin to return to normalcy, it is time that we ensure that when we finally unveil ourselves, we are looking and feeling our absolute best. Nothing says I came to play like a clean cut workspace. Ladies, if you didn't receive the Mother's Day gift that you wanted, take control and get your man the tools to succeed so he can take care of your every need. With Father's Day just around the corner, Manscaped has got you covered with the best precision engineered tools. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team have perfected the greatest ball hair trimmer ever with the Lawnmower 3.0. This third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. The waterproof technology allows you to groom in the shower, and one of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming. When I tell you this is premium, I mean Premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. If you're watching or listening to this right now, I want you to click the link in the description and experience it for yourself firsthand. That's why Manscaped is offering 20% off and free shipping when you use the code TheBigO20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping. Just click the link in the description below and head over to manscaped.com. Make sure you use the code TheBigO20. Your balls will thank you. I'm glad you brought up the Graysons because it brings me to this. I want to ask you a trivia question, if you will indulge me. Other than you and your brother Marcus, there have been two other notable athletes to graduate from Lincoln High to win a major sports championship. Do you know who these athletes are? So they went to your high school and then won major championships once they left. Do you know who these athletes are?
Well, of course, one played for the Raptors.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Norm Powell do you know Norm Powell went to Lincoln?
Yeah, I did. Well, it's in my research. Yeah, Norm Powell was one of them, 2019 NBA champion with the Toronto Raptors. Do you know the second one?
The other running back that went to Lincoln played for Denver Broncos.
I like you just so casually. The other two-time Super Bowl winner, Hall of Fame running back. You know that guy, yeah, Mr. Terrell Davis. Incredible, yeah. I mean, I was doing some research.
I don't know if you know about Wally Henry.
Yeah,
Wally Henry played for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he won a Rose Bowl. You know, there's a lot of like running backs, like Ricky Williams, who's from San Diego, went to Patrick Henry. There's four Heisman Trophy winners from San Diego.
Jeez, I mean, Ricky Williams came and played in for the Toronto Argos at one point as well.
That's right.
That he came, and I remember he actually came to my high school one time.
So yeah, so you got Ricky Williams, you got Marcus, you got Salam Salim that won the Heisman. You had Johnny Rodgers.
Yeah, there were quite a few notable people. What I was more
from USC that played for the New Orleans Saints, won the Heisman.
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush.
That's my guy. Reggie Bush.
All from San Diego.
The Bush push. I remember where I was and exactly the moment when the Bush push happened against Notre Dame with Matt Lionart and Reggie Bush to get them to complete their undefeated season, to go on and lose to Texas. I don't like to remember that part of it, but Reggie Bush was probably the most memorable collegiate football player of my time growing up. I loved him when he went and played with New Orleans because, you know, it was very exciting. Him and Drew Brees,
right,
absolutely killing it. And speaking of Mr. Brees, you know, he just retired. And I was talking about your accolades and talking about the GOAT conversation. You know, to this point, you know, you've, again, 4-time Grey Cup champion, 3-time Grey Cup MVP, CFL All-Star, 2005 Most Outstanding Player. People forget that at one point you were the all-time leader in passing yards and are still currently number 4 in that category, with players only of Drew Brees, Anthony Calvillo, and the greatest NFL quarterback to ever play the game, Mr. Tom Brady. A little bit biased, as you can see. I am a New England Patriot fan. But what does it mean to you to know that you're amongst the greatest to ever play the game? And does it ever bother you that uneducated people don't give you the credit simply because you played in the CFL?
No, I don't really look at the credit because, you know, I'm just thankful for, you know, my longevity, the ability to play so long and all those things. I mean, everyone's career is different. And like saying, not everyone, like I said, I don't think I ever played the game for, you know, the praise for other people, right? It was always about the things that I enjoy doing and trying to play as long as I want. I remember Ronnie Lott told me one day, he says, stay on scholarship. And I knew exactly what that meant.
Right.
Play as long as you can.
Of course.
Yeah. And when I was being inducted in the San Diego Hall of Fame, I was talking to Dan Fouts.
Okay.
And we're sitting at the table and he's like, man, And he was marveling, like, man, I can't believe you play so long, right? And in that time, I didn't realize that Dan Fouts, you had watched me play or my
Right.
career, but I think people recognize, like I says, game recognize game, and just despite what league you played in, a lot of people can't, fathom what I was able to do and play so long, and to be able to still, at 41, 42, win league's most outstanding player, which that's hard to do in any league right now.
For sure. I mean, that's hard to do at 22 years old, let alone towards the end of your career. I mean,
That's right.
what you're able to do is simply amazing. And I bring this up because, I said off the top, arguably the CFL GOAT, greatest Canadian football player, greatest quarterback to grace the CFL. And the reason I say that is because I hold Tom Brady in that esteem of, look at his age, look at the longevity, look at what he's done over such a long period of time. And like you said, not very common for guys to play in the NFL for, 10, sometimes 15, let alone 20 years, let alone going into their early 40s. At some point, though, when you're hearing these conversations about Tom Brady and, oh man, he's turning 41 this year, he still looks good. 42, can he win another one? Are you saying, guys, I did this first before him? He's getting the recipe from me.
No, I think in a sense, being humble in that way, right? Because I just came in and played in a different era. Like if I would have come out with my skill set that I am now, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be like, doing NFL Pro Day, trying to figure out who I'm going to get drafted by. But
right.
I just think now, what brings me confidence now is, I'm at 57 years old, and I can go on the field, and you can be sitting out there, sitting in the stands watching, me and Brady play, and you wouldn't find no difference, and he's still playing right now,
right?
Because of your ability to take care of yourself. You can still spin the rock, and I'm still enjoying in the teaching aspect, but still throwing the football and like not really like lost any arm strength or anything like that. And so I think like that is just, you realize that the longevity of your skill set and what you can still do, right, makes you have the same confidence or talk the same way that I'm talking right now.
It sort of sounds like if the CFL...
It's like almost all I have to do is get in shape and I can go to someone's training camp at 57.
And that's what I was going to ask you. It sort of sounds like you're saying that if, a CFL team came a calling and said, Dame, listen, we need 1 year out of you.
Yeah, I can be a backup for somebody right now.
That's insane. That is amazing. That is, I'd pay to see that now. Like, I would take my money now. Let's go.
I think people would pay to see that because, they need good stories like that. Because like Mayweather says, the people are going to pay to come see me play because they like me.
Yep.
And then you're going to have people that pay to see me play because they don't think I can do it. So
that's right.
Either or, I'm bringing people to the stadium.
Listen, that couldn't be more true. I think that would be amazing. And I think as soon as you sign that contract, whether you play or you don't play, Disney is going to come knocking next and say, we'd like the rights to your story. We want to make a football movie about you. And if they did that, if they said, we want to do a movie that highlights the amazing successes that you've had from 6 years old playing football to, where you are now. If you had your choice of a specific time period in your career that you could highlight, when would it be? And my second question is, who would be playing you in that movie?
Who would be playing me?
Yeah, like what actor would be playing Damon Allen? Oh,
it'd be Denzel.
I like it.
Denzel would play that role, and it's pretty unique story when I look back. And because you have to understand, I went as a young man, going into high school. You're dealing with the prestige of your brother Marcus, like he was
Right.
dominating, and so you come out 3 years later, come out of the same high school, and then you're playing quarterback because he played quarterback at his unit at high school. So automatically, the pressure was on me. Is like when I start playing, they're like, "Oh, you don't play like your brother Marcus," but okay. But it didn't matter because to me, it's like, I was a real true quarterback growing
Right.
up. I played quarterback ever since I was 7, 8 years old. And so, how do you do that? And how do you deal with those things, right? With the pressures of, who your brother is. And, he's number one player in California, right?
Yeah.
He plays quarterback and free safety both ways. And so, I mean, he was a dominant player coming out of high school. That's why he was number one recruit in California. But he only won one CIF. And so when I came, I won two. So, I mean, that's always something I can always say. I won two at Lincoln.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean,
Right.
and you got your Grey Cup championships as well, right? So,
Right.
you show off that hand, you've got four, he's got that lowly one Super Bowl. It's like, listen, you're going to be,
But,
getting me the next drink.
he has a amazing resume, too. I
Oh,
mean,
for sure.
if you look at his, it's like, okay, won a Heisman, won a national championship. Uh, he won every award imaginable in National Football League, from Rookie of the Year to Super Bowl MVP to MVP to league MVP to
Yeah.
comeback player of the year. And, come on, man.
I was trying to make this about you, and then you made this about your brother. And
I am my brother.
this is true. Now, I want to ask you two last things before I let you go. And one of them was, you pitched in the 1984 College World Series. You won a championship. You get drafted in the 7th round by the Detroit Tigers, but you never sign. And then in 1993, you signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates and even attend spring training. At any point, did you think that you weren't going to have the professional career in football and that baseball might have been the way you wanted to go?
No, I think for me, it's during that time, and the reason why I did that is it was an opportunity that came about. And then at the same time, when I look back, I never really closed that door or never experienced going to spring training. So that was something I had to do.
Right.
I had to do to fulfill, what if. And so when that opportunity came, I trained for it, I worked out for it, and then they signed me that day to the Pirates.
Right.
They signed me that day, and then it was during the time I was with the Ticats. And then my off days, I was playing with the Hamilton Cardinals, playing baseball on my off days. And then when the tryout came, I had to okay a trade for me to go back to Edmonton.
Okay.
And so when I okayed the trade, we decided we're going to drive. So we drove on down through Pittsburgh all the way down, and then we drove into Edmonton. And when the Pirates signed me that day, I came to Edmonton to accept the trade, come back to Edmonton to play. I had told him I would say, I'm gonna play baseball in '94. Because that was the time when I did the trial, they wanted me to come to spring in '94.
Right.
Which ended up happening. We ended up winning the Grey Cup that year in '93. We ended up winning the Grey Cup in '93, played the full season, went back to training, and then went to training camp with the Pirates in '94. At the same time, Michael Jordan was there. He was with the White Sox.
Yep.
So I was playing during the time Michael Jordan was playing.
Jeez. What experience was that like for you to be, not to say that you're playing against Michael Jordan, but even just understanding that he's leaving his sport, you're just won a Grey Cup, so you're at the pinnacle of your sport, and now both of you are in this, testing out this baseball passion.
And for me is, I was actually a true baseball player all through university, right. And so I think the last time he played was in high school, and so I never looked at him as a true baseball player, but the
Right.
fact that that was one of his loves in high school. But it was amazing the amount of time when you seen him. I mean, he looked just as natural in the right field, running down balls. I mean, as far as hitting, he might have had a little bit of slow back, getting used to playing baseball again. Because I pitched against him when he got bumped down to Double A. And I was playing, and we played in Sarasota. My brother was there, and Spike Lee was there. There's a video that's out that just shows that I struck him out twice
Ooh.
um, in a game. But it was all cool. Like, so even to this day, I mean, my youngest brother Darius was telling the story. He says, "Hey, he met Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan was telling him he thought Darius was me." He said,
Right.
"Man," and he was talking to Darius like, "Man, you almost like cussed him, like, you struck me out, twice in the what you call it." Right. And Darius to the story was telling me like, man, he thought that I was him. And so it's pretty neat that even after that point we became friends after that.
Jeez. I mean, I listed the accolades of trophies and championships and MVPs, and you're sitting on one of the greatest, stories of all time. And that
Right.
is going up against MJ in his baseball time and striking him out not once, but striking him out twice to the point where he's getting upset, thinking like, "Hey, why are you doing that to me? That's amazing. That is better than anything I could have ever expected."
I mean, we were both two athletes, man, trying to make it, and I was
Right.
willing to. And I had a good spring training. I mean, I was willing to give up football for it, and
Really?
I go back for a year. Absolutely,
Wow.
yeah. I wanted to play baseball for a full year.
And what changed?
They wouldn't give me no compensation, the money I would lose.
Right. Fair enough.
So, I mean, if they would like compensate in half, I would have played baseball.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. That's
But they weren't willing to give me any money, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do this.
I'm sure Edmonton was like, Thank you for not giving him the money he needed,
Mhm.
because I'm sure they were happy to have you back and not lose you for a year to potential injury and all of the
That's
things
right.
that come with playing professional sports.
So I ended up coming back in '94. We should have '94. We should have went to the Grey Cup, but then I ended up playing for the Memphis Mad Dogs in '95. So I was leaving to go stateside anyway because the CFL was expanding to the states.
Yep.
So
You've literally done everything. You have played on you played on an American team during the expansion time in the
mhm.
CFL while still playing in the CFL. You've won amazing things at every level, from Pop Warner to Pee Wee to College
Mhm.
World Series, high school football, college football, Canadian football. You've struck out Michael Jordan twice in Double A. What have are you already immune to COVID-19? Because that would be the next thing. You don't even need vaccinations. We're just taking your blood to heal the rest
Well, I
of the
pray every
world.
day, and I always thank the Most High for His hedge of protection over me, and so I haven't had any issue with COVID either. But like I said, I don't take it for granted. So, like I said, I try to do all the things that allow you to enjoy life, right? And
Yep.
having the right attitude, always having a smile on my face. But like at the end of the day, like whatever I'm involved in, I'm competitive as hell, right?
For
And
sure.
want to be good and want to be good at it. So at the end of the day, the fire never leaves.
Now you're being the best at being healthy. Like, no one's going to
Mhm.
beat you at being healthy right now. That is your
Absolutely, and
next
that's
pursuit.
that's the thing that I'm really always mindful of. Eating better, um, learning more, reading more, right?
Now, last thing, really quickly, just to get you out of here. When we first spoke, I want to say maybe it's about a month ago, we happened to connect on the Clubhouse app with
Yeah.
hosted by Ainsley McPhail, talking about how we're going to save the CFL. And I very nonchalantly just talked about, the XFL could be the X factor, the new ownership could be a competitor to the CFL, and probably like 2 weeks later, it's announced that the CFL and XFL are in talks right now for some sort of partnership that has the mindset to grow the game. And we haven't heard very many details of this. It's a rumor that they would still operate separately and they would play against each other a la AFL and NFL before the merger and have their championship teams play against each other. But a new thing that has come out is that the CFL is going to announce on April 19th the official delay to the upcoming season, with hopes that some sort of partnership deal is in place, because the XFL isn't supposed to start until 2022. The CFL obviously wants to do something in 2021 after canceling last season. In your mind, does a partnership between the XFL and CFL work? And if it does, what do you think that partnership sort of looks like that elevates the CFL with this rich history and allows, the XFL ownership to embrace the game maybe outside of Canada a little bit more? Like, what do you see? How do you see this partnership working if it's going to be successful?
Well, I think that, to say it can't work is just doesn't make sense, because
Right.
You have Bell and you have Rogers, and they're doing partnerships together.
Of course.
And banks doing partnerships together and these kind of things. So to say it can't work, that would make no sense. But the fact that what COVID has done is really exposed the CFL in a sense that they need to look at a better revenue model, or be more innovative in their revenue model.
Yeah.
And in the same time, when you look at the XFL, so often, it's misleading in a sense, because everyone says the XFL, hadn't been successful in the, stoppage in the last couple of years. But their last stoppage has everything to do with COVID.
Right.
Because the numbers and everything was going well until COVID stopped it. And then they stopped it due to the fact that I think it was in the spring, right? And so It was fairly new in the COVID when they started their season. But the numbers that they had in Houston and Dallas, I think the attendance was really good. At the time, they probably didn't have no TV deal. But at the end of the day, you have 8 teams down there and you have 9 teams here. And so to me is how it can work, and the challenges are what? You have a Canadian field, which is bigger, and you have a American field, which is smaller, that doesn't accommodate. And one of the things I said, why don't you just play CFL football? Because they already understand what arena is. They already had arena, so they understand the motion and movements. So why don't you just have CFL in the States and CFL, like once again, in Canada, keep the game the same or improve it in certain different ways. If you want to add a down, if you want to add another down, that means there'll be no defense being played. But in the States, you'll play with 11.
Right.
In Canada, you'll play with 12. So you get to add a person and you get to take away a person if a Canadian team has to go down there and play. So I think the game will still be the same, but you're taking one player off the field because of the size of field.
Right.
So with the CFL field, you play with 12. And you play down in the States, you play with 11. But the CFL rules still apply. And I said that would be something for the first year that could work. And we'll still keep our the main brand, what CFL is all about.
Of course.
And so that's something that can be discussed. But unless you're going to, like saying, you're going to go to U.S. game or U.S. style football, and you're going to have to manipulate some of the rules, because you're just not going to remove the CFL, because our history is much longer, much wider,
sure.
and greater than the XFL. And so to me that would be the one structure I would say, in which, like saying, you can get by 11-man CFL rules and 12-man when you play on the bigger field.
Yeah, I mean, the model's definitely there. Like you said, there are constantly, rival companies bridging deals to make it work. There's definitely something there, which I'm hoping is the reason for the delay, because obviously there isn't a quick fix to this. It takes time to work through models that are going to benefit both. XFL is going to come in with money. The Rock, Danny Garcia, the
And I think
CFL's.
our game is really good, and I think it really opens up to the fullness of football.
For
It
sure.
takes advantage of special teams, and you're going to see special teams, and you're going to see all these different things. You're going to see great returners on each team because there's no fair catch, and so you're always going to get a return. And so I just think, the CFL game, our like I said, our issue the first time around, we had great owners,
Right.
but the field didn't accommodate 12 men.
Right.
Right. And so that was the issue. So if we're going to play on U.S. fields, because there's no way you can expand the fields the way they're built right now. And if you would, the NFL would have went to the bigger field.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking to keep the history and then innovate, because if you look at any sport, the NBA's got their play-in tournament they're doing this year. They're experimenting with different rule changes in baseball to make the game more accessible, to make the game, a little less time and fun. And the NHL is always tweaking things when it comes to overtime and shootouts and how they do all of the things that they do. So it's time that, the CFL, who has been notorious for not wanting to change anything, this is the time. Like the pandemic has forced you to create and seek innovation. You can't come back with the same product under the old model, because for years
or
you're
the
losing
same
money.
model. You're right.
Yeah,
You definitely have to, because more than 50-60% of the revenue is from people in the stands, and so you're going to have to put a model in place so that people who can't go to the game but they can see, and you can still generate money and still have that in place once the people come back to the stands. So you're going to have people who desire to watch the games but may not want to go to the games, but you're going to have people that want to go to the games and see it, and you pack those houses, but you still have the eyes in place, to allow people to, buy the game or whatever it may be to watch it, right? And so, you definitely have to look at different revenue models and see what's happening, what's going on, the innovation aspect. But, that's the one thing I think COVID has done, is really exposed the CFL and their financial structure.
Yeah, they're either going to have to adapt and get better, or suffer the consequences of what happens if you don't. And I don't think the history will allow, or the fans will allow, the latter to happen. So they'll definitely have to adapt and innovate. Damon, thank you so much. You were amazing, generous with your time and answering questions and putting up with some of my silly questions. For those who want to follow you on Twitter or on Instagram to catch some of your upcoming golf, cooking show, workout lives, where can they find you?
They can find me on both. The Damon Allen 9 on my Instagram and Damon Allen 9 on my Twitter. I also have D9 Allen is one of my other Twitters on more of a podcast, and I just really talk football there most of the time. But those are the two Instagram follows that I pretty much are on majority of the time and talk to people.
Amazing. And if you're on Clubhouse, you can always find Damon Allen checking into a Clubhouse room, either on a daily or every other day. He's always there, just
I'm always out, but I'm only involved in the things I'm interested in.
For sure.
I'm only in the rooms that I'm interested in.
Yeah, so if you catch him in a room, it's because he's passionate about something that's going on there.
That's right.
Amazing. Follow Damon Allen. He's got amazing things. Great person to chat with if you ever get the opportunity to. The Big O Podcast, you can find it on all of your major podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast. You can find it up on YouTube, The Big O Podcast. Like, subscribe, share, comment. And we have some fun announcements coming up very soon, so stay with us and follow along. But for my guest, Damon Allen, I'm your host, Julian Ortiz. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. Have a great night.